Buying or selling a home is one of the most important decisions you'll make in your entire life. Call the Holly Ritchie team today for a free market analysis.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining me tonight on another edition of Spanning the Need. I'm your host, Anthony Spano. Tonight, we're going to talk about life and news with the WFMJ Today Morning Show co-anchors, Christa Lamendola and Steve Vesey. Did I get that right?
Close, Vesey. That's all right.
It was close. It was close.
It was close. Well, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem.
Thanks for having us.
Well, and so you guys have been on the WFMJ Today Morning Show together for how long?
Almost 2 years. Close. More than a year and a half.
Yeah. But we've worked together. Steve and I realized it. He started just a few weeks before I did, and we both celebrated our 5-year anniversaries at the station just a few months ago. So, so total 5 years each over at.
So you're veterans around here.
Around here, maybe.
Well, let's start, Christa. Let's start with you. Talk a little bit about kind of your career path, where you kind of started, and how you got to WFMJ.
Yeah. Well, I guess Steve and I both have a very similar start to our careers because even though we weren't there at the same time, Steve and I both went to Ohio University together. Oh yeah. And we both started in college at our college TV station, which broadcasted on PBS, called WOUB, and we were the Woobers. And we used to brag that Matt Lauer went there and used the program, but we can't do that.
Yeah, we don't make that assertion anymore.
But OU was known for broadcast.
He's got an asterisk next to his name.
Yeah. But yeah, we were allowed to go on air when we were in college. And then in college, I was also spending my summers in Pittsburgh working at the radio stations in Pittsburgh. So my job was to go to concerts and broadcast from concerts. That was really fun. Then my first job was in Lansing, Michigan, which was a reporter job, an MMJ job, as we call it, which is when you shoot your own stuff, you edit your own stuff, you do everything. A one-man band, you do it all. You don't have anybody to shoot a camera for you. And then I was actually looking to get closer to home. So I saw a weekend anchor position open up at 21. And I emailed the news director, and here we are today. So I started out as the weekend anchor and then got moved to weekday mornings with my kids.
Morning? Okay. So. Steve, what about you? Because I think the objective is to get people to know kind of who you are and kind of get where your career has gone and kind of how you were in your place, because everyone likes to know.
Yeah, and we all have different paths that we follow. Mine is probably significantly different than a lot of people who end up on a morning show. I was a sports guy. I went to OU like Christa and worked at OUB. I was the assistant sports director there my senior year. So, but I anchored news a couple days a week. I anchored sports a couple days a week. Won an Emmy in college for our Friday night football show. So it was fun. We had a great, I can't say enough about the college experience. I actually interned at Channel 33 when it was back when it used to be its own station before the merger with 27 and the layoffs and all that jazz. So I interned there for a year under Bob Hannon and Bill Castrovince. And then I went and got my first sports job in Elmira, New York, at the NBC in Elmira. It's in the area called the Twin Tiers at the southern part of upstate New York. And I was there for, 7 years? I was the weekend guy at first, and I got promoted to the main sports guy when I was, 24? And from there, went to Buffalo, and I was the sports director at the CBS in Buffalo for about 3.5 years. Covered the Bills, covered the Sabres. It was fun, did a lot of traveling, traveled with the Bills to every one of their road games and everything, covered the NFL Combine, owners meetings, and made a couple of national radio and TV appearances through that. So it was funny, it just popped up in my memories the other day. The first time I was on national, I was on Thursday Night Football, and it was like my Facebook memories were all my friends being like, what is going on? I am watching a halftime show, and then you pop up. But unfortunately, my station there started doing some cutbacks, and they cut some of their higher priced people, which unfortunately I ended up catching that, and me and several of my former colleagues. And on the plus side, at the same time, Derek Steyer was being groomed for the main job here, and so the Weekend Morning Show opened up and sent a quick video link and got a call back, I think a day later, or maybe even that same day, asking if I'd come out. And it was sort of like the stars aligned, I guess. The timing was perfect. I came back home. I'm from here. I'm from Vienna, up in Trumbull County. I'm a Matthews High School grad. And so the opportunity to come back to my home area, well, I don't live in Vienna now. Obviously, it's close to my heart. And it was a cool opportunity. And so I was the Weekend Morning Show for a few years, and then popped on over with Christa here for the weekday show. And I have weekends off now, which is great.
Wow. That's a big deal for TV news to have the weekend.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. I've actually seen you at Matthews basketball games because I referee high school basketball. Mm-hmm. So you go and watch your brother, I think it is.
Yeah, my brother. He coached there for a little while. Yeah, he doesn't coach there anymore.
Yeah, I know him very well, and we talk about where people have gone in their careers, kind of different, jumping everywhere. What are some of your goals and kind of career? Like, do you want to continue staying here, or do you have ambitions of moving farther? Like what do they call like a 10-year goal or something?
This is like a career interview question. Like, I think the main thing for TV news, they're like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? And you're like, I don't know. I didn't see myself sitting in front of you right now. So it's like, that's always like a confusing thing. But Steve, I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, for me, I'm at a much different point in life than I used to be. So when I first got into the business, I'm like, man, I am going. I wanted to be on a national, sports broadcast in some capacity. And the more that you learn, the further you go on, you kind of learn some things that maybe a job that you thought would be pie in the sky, really cool opportunity might be something that isn't exactly what you thought it would be. And so the further I went on, the more I kind of learned, and I had some opportunities that I passed on because it wasn't a good fit for me at that point in time. And so, listen, I'm home. I'm not going anywhere. I can't imagine myself. You never know what'll happen. So I can't put 100% qualifier on it, but I mean, this is home for me, and I don't foresee myself moving. I mean, we already uprooted our kids out of one school system in north of Buffalo to come here. And I don't really want to do that again. So I'm enjoying it here. We have a good TV station. It's fun. I work with people that I really truly enjoy working with, and it's I can't. My goal is here. My goal is just to be happy, basically.
And that's a big deal. I think that's one of the things that you learn about the TV business, that there are things that the public just doesn't see. Like my first job, I was living in government housing. Like it is not some glamorous thing. I was working 60-hour weeks, getting paid $25,000 a year, struggling to pay my student loans. My sister was sending me money for groceries. I was afraid to go to the doctor. I mean, there are some things that it's not like, it's so competitive that it's not always glamorous. And you have these big TV companies that, you barely get any vacation time, or you barely get any sick days, and the pay's not great, the benefits aren't great, and it's hard. You get these big companies that they buy out other TV stations to cut down on their debt. So when you get bought out, when big companies get bought out, you have this moment like, oh no, we're going to get more cuts. I felt that. I used to work for a huge company. So coming to 21 and knowing it's locally owned, it was just like a different world. Just with, as far as the benefits and the family owned, the fact that we're a union, that there's unions here. I mean, it's just like a big, big deal for us. And the grass is not always greener on the other side. Like you could go to a big city far away from your family, not get paid enough, be expected to do all this work, all this extra work to do it yourself. I mean, and you wonder, okay, is that really going to make me happy? And you have that conversation with yourself, because when you're young, you get that, oh, I want to be on the Today Show, you know, like you have this. When now you look and say, do I want to live in New York? Like, no, I like grass. Like, I love seeing the sky. You know, I love having breathing room. I love knowing people and being a part of my community. So it's a different thing. So I do think that, especially at our station, because it's locally owned and it is a different world than what my other friends in the business go through in broadcast, that you see our reporters that have been here for forever, and you see people that are here and they're close to their family and you don't want to leave. And it really does genuinely make sense to us, especially when you see the big picture.
And we both kind of sort of lived the other side of the spectrum too. I mean, we've seen, the big corporate conglomerates that own, 70 TV stations across the nation. And we've seen, I've seen firsthand the management that thinks that me having 4 kids at home is a detriment to my ability to do the job. And then I come here and my general manager knows my kids and asks about my son playing basketball and stuff. It's the vibe is so much different. I realize that we always, have the locally owned, locally connected tagline and everything. And maybe people at home don't fully understand the significance of that. But believe me, on this side of the camera, there is some massive significance.
Oh, yeah. When people used to ask me where I got my clothes, I was like, oh, Goodwill. Like, it was like guaranteed everything. I used to call my mom because she would find the wealthy areas in Pittsburgh when I was in Michigan. And she would go to the wealthy areas to buy me dresses for work to try to get a good bargain for me. And I didn't buy anything else, I wasn't going out and going on vacation. So it is one of those things that once you see everything, you are very grateful for it. So yeah, I think I'm both happy. I don't know, my co-anchor's a jerk though.
Ego-driven monster.
Well, you know what? Since you're already picking on each other, I'm going to skip to a certain question.
Oh, yeah.
So, since you've already called your co-anchor or your partner a jerk, Steve, this is back at you.
Okay.
What pet peeve drives you nuts of Christa? Don't worry, I got one coming for that's gonna be back to you too, Christa and Steve.
We know too much about each other. It's all like I don't know. We just click. Sometimes when she's running prompter, she forgets to run it. I don't know.
Yeah. We like to have this joke that I'm always asleep at the wheel with our teleprompter. We have to run it with our and Steve always has to yell at me across the studio because I'll just be like, I just put this little lead foot. And
I'll be like, keep going.
And I have to back it up or go forward. I always mess it up. I'm guilty of that. But
what about you, Chris? Anything on Steve?
No, I think.
Oh, come on. I'm not an angel. Go ahead.
Okay, here's the thing. Okay, so when you get up at 2 a.m., I feel like perfect example, I used to sing in the morning, and Mike Case used to be like, Christa, it's too soon. It's too soon. Not yet. And I'd be like, all right. And I'd wait, I'd be like, are you awake yet? And, so I think you really have to make sure when you're getting up that early, I don't know if there's anything that could annoy me at that point,
Being too kind.
It's already out there. Steve sings during commercial breaks, or when he comes in, he's like, good morning, and sings. That's not annoying to me or a pet.
I didn't say anything. I was just a pet because you'd be like, it's too early. I need my second cup of coffee.
Yeah. No, it's not.
Yeah, I've already had my first cup by the time I even show up. So.
You know what I do? We also have this thing that Steve times me every single morning of how long it takes for me to drop something.
That's not a pet peeve. I enjoy that.
Because we sit at the news desk and now we have to socially distance in the studio. And I just try to grab everything I own and shove it into the desk. So I have lipstick shoved in the desk and I have like powder shoved in the desk and a brush shoved in the desk and my phone and a mirror and then coffee. And I don't know. I always knock something over.
Totally. Every day, like clockwork.
During the news too. If you ever hear saying it's me.
Well, this pandemic has really changed the way we probably do news.
Probably, absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely, dramatically.
Well, talk a little bit about we've almost been in this for 9 months, and maybe 10 months, maybe a year, and there's no end in sight or light at the end of the tunnel until maybe spring of 2021, maybe longer, because you're seeing a lot of closings and just cases increase. How has it changed the news business from what you guys were doing in January, February to when now, hey, we're in March, we're in April, May, June, and where has that kind of put you as an individual or overall?
I mean,
we know you had to stay in the basement, Steve, from what Christa just told us.
He's in the basement right now.
I'm in the basement right now. I'm allowed to leave.
So just talk about that and how it's changed.
Well, I mean, what you see right now is a perfect example of one of, I'd say probably one of the two biggest ways that I think that our lives have changed. Maybe three biggest are we work half of our shift from home at this point. We're done with the news. We record a couple things, and then we're gone, and we do everything else from home. And number two is that we haven't had usually we have 3 in-studio interview segments in our show literally every day, 1 in the first hour and 2 in the second hour. And sometimes it's more than that. And we haven't had an in-studio interview since early March?
It was really early on.
And
before the primaries, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, and then we had, and then typically the two of us go out on stories too. And they've kind of kept the anchor team insulated, I guess, a little bit. And all of the interviews that we've done have been over Zoom or Skype or something like that. And so they're 3 dramatic changes from our day-to-day workflow, what would be a typical workday for us.
Yeah. And really, that was one of the biggest struggles, because before the pandemic, we had dabbled in wanting to do live interviews via Skype or via Zoom, because there are we have groups that travel, a lot of people go to DC, and we would love to talk to people while they're there. It's newsworthy, and we would love to have it, but we've never been able to do more than a phone interview, really, unless we pre-recorded something. We haven't been able to do that. And that's a process in itself for us to pre-record something and get it into our system at the TV station and then air it. So really, for us to go live for a Skype segment and a Zoom segment, kudos to our engineers, because that was a huge deal for us. Because when you see those interviews, they're not recorded, they're live. And that is really hard, just even logistics. Like, think of how many times you Zoom, right? You can hear me, I can hear you right now. But that doesn't really work when we're in the studio, right? So like, somebody could be doing Skype on our producer's computer, and the way it's set up, they would hear my producer. They wouldn't hear me in the studio asking the questions. So that is a really technical glitch that we had to work through so that our guests could hear us in the studio asking the questions. But ever since we've done that, it's been smooth sailing. I mean, I really think that we've been able to smooth that over, any bumpiness with it. We've gotten it. And in a weird way, it's kind of given us more access to people. People are more willing, where someone might want to come onto the show and wake up at 5 a.m. to drive to the studio and do all of that. People are more likely to wake up with us via Skype or Zoom, I think, and do it in their own kitchen. So
yeah, and we can have some experts from out of town too, which I think is whenever we do get back to normal, whenever that is, I think it just expands the possibilities of what we can do. So it's a positive that has come out of it, but I think, it's definitely different without a doubt.
Yeah.
Well, I think it becomes the norm that when you sit in a Zoom call, you only see here up.
Yeah.
You don't see, are you wearing shorts? Are you wearing pajama pants? I know there's been stories that I've heard, and I will quote, when I was a sports guy in my first market, I wore shorts on a daily basis at the desk in the summer.
It's true.
Is that, Steve? That would be
absolutely. That is 100% accurate every day. But I mean, part of it too is I would go out and I would do interviews, or in my first market, go shoot a baseball game or something. It's 85 degrees outside. I'm not doing that in a suit. So I'd wear a polo and shorts and then change out of the polo and put shirt and tie on and a sport coat real quick before I went on at 6 or 5 or whenever it was. And until I got to Buffalo and everything, I had to stand up every time. That was a daily thing for me. I would wear shorts as long as it would allow. Now, I had some friends who would wear flip-flops and stuff. That I would never do that. I couldn't go that far. It was a little too casual for me. But no, in my first market, our main anchor at the time used to ride his bike to work, and he wore shorts in the summer too at the anchor desk. So it was
a guy thing. Can I just say, I've gone out on fires, and I've gone through muddy fields with heels and a Calvin Klein dress on, and it's been so gross. And I must have to throw them away. That's a guy thing. If only.
Well, I've heard ladies would wear a skirt with shorts underneath and just be like, okay, I'm done.
Well, you know what we do, which I will say, and anyone who's seen me or Emily come into the studio really early has seen this. I used to wear a work dress and then pajama pants over it or something, just because I don't really need tights in the studio. The studio is really warm. Anyone who's ever gets mad at us for wearing short sleeves in the studio doesn't understand how hot it is with the lights on. It really does get warm in there. So by the time you're up in the studio, you're gonna get way too hot if you're in tights. So I would totally get sweatpants and put it on over my dress and then come up. That's a pretty normal thing. And then sneakers is our pandemic fashion, isn't it, Steve?
Mm-hmm. I've worn sneakers exclusively in the studio for 8 months now. It's great.
And Christa, you kind of transitioned from radio to TV. Mm-hmm. Did you enjoy going to TV, or is kind of radio you kind of like?
TV was always the goal. The reason I started working at the radio station in college was because I didn't think that I was good enough as a freshman to get a job or an internship at a TV station. So I figured, well, I can do this and then I'll really be set. But if radio's fun, it really is. I mean, my job was to take people backstage at concerts. How they do promotions and they give out free tickets. I was the person that was like, okay, I'm going to take you backstage to go meet Toby Keith. Come with me. And then I was like, hey, Toby. It was the best job ever.
Oh, hey, Christa. Saw you again last year.
Yeah. I mean, it was honestly so much fun, but that was just a part-time promotions job. So the world is definitely different in TV than it was in radio. But I do think that the people in radio are some of the best characters that I've ever met. We do have a lot of there is a difference. Radio is much more of the entertainment beat, mm-hmm. and TV is much more the news beat. I mean, it's just a different vibe when you're at crime scenes for TV and you're talking about Taylor Swift in radio. One is much easier to bring a smile to your face, and it's just very positive. So I really did enjoy that, but. The morning show is kind of a hybrid of that. And I think that's why we enjoy it, because we talk about the things we need to, but then we'll laugh about something crazy, mm-hmm. We can talk about what we made for dinner or just normal things, and we can be more ourselves. And we could maybe in an evening broadcast where we only have a half hour. And that time's too precious to talk about that stuff. So.
Well, and you went from radio to TV and mm-hmm. kind of Steve was kind of a little bit different, but stayed in the TV market, but went from sports to kind of news. Mm-hmm. How was that transition to news? Were you just easily adapted, or did that kind of change your mentality of, sports to news?
I mean, it was similar but different. I had to alter my delivery a little bit. In sports, I was high energy sports guy. I mean, you had 3 minutes tops, usually 2.5, 2:45 to get everything in there. And I was fast and loud and funny. Well, I tried to be funny. I wasn't always funny.
You seem like you have a good sense of humor. Christa's laughing.
I've seen him do it. You should see. He's still in the mornings. He can do sports highlights, and he has so much fun with them. Like, the gift is not gone. He's still.
I just dabble now. So no, it was fun. It was. I loved doing it. I knew that it wasn't a long-term thing for me, though. For me, it was more like a personal life-driven thing. I knew that. When you work at night, when you do the 5, 6, 10, and 11, you're not necessarily home for dinner. And when my kids got school age, that means I meant I wasn't home to see them get off the bus, and then I would miss dinner. And it was. I remember specifically my wife bringing all 4 of our kids to eat dinner with me in my office in Buffalo because I couldn't get home. And it was, I knew that wasn't something that was going to be the rest of my career. So for me, it was sort of like a necessity. It was sped up when they let me go. So it was like forced into the decision. But, and the funny part is I used to go to bed at 2 and now I wake up at 3. So it's a much different world. The shift change was probably a much harder transition for me than the actual content change, because especially when I was in Buffalo, unfortunately, NFL players sometimes get arrested or they get in trouble, or so there was a lot more when you're covering an NFL beat. It's a lot more newsy than maybe it was in my first market when I was calling high school baseball highlights or high school lacrosse highlights or doing a high school football Friday night show. It was a little easier of a transition with that. And I don't know. I mean, I still talk for a living, so it's kind of similar.
That's what Steve like, and honestly, Derek was a sports person that went to news too. The thing that we stereotype sports guys that go into news as is that they are so good at ad-libbing. Like, you can take a sports guy and put him out on breaking news, and he'll be able to explain it to you well, because that is what they're so good at that. At ad-libbing. And I think that's one of the reasons that like Steve does such a good job with the morning show, because we'll hear in our ear, like, okay, you have to talk for a minute. And if you're not somebody who can naturally talk and be themselves, you're in trouble. It's going to be awkward. Mm-hmm. And ad-libbing is such a fantastic skill that not everybody has. I mean, they don't really train you to do that in college. They don't teach you how to ad-lib. You either can or you can't. But that is kind of like a secret skill that a lot of our sports guys have that they bring to news, and it's a lifesaver, especially when we have anything technical happen. Having somebody that can talk and be themselves is fantastic.
Would that be including the script, the pedal?
Sometimes I have to ad-lib a little bit until it catches up, right?
We've had that. We've had to do that, or like when we're waiting for a camera to come.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, and that's funny you say is so kind of morning show is a very different hour of the day or night. Mm-hmm. What time do you guys kind of get up and get into the studio?
I'll let you go first on this, Christa.
I get up before Steve.
Yep.
I get up at 2, and that gives me a chance till I'm at 2:30. And that's honestly, I don't have to get up that early, but I have this deep, very real fear that if I sleep in, that I will sleep through the show. And so my contingency plan is like, if I can get there like an hour early, even 40 minutes early, for some reason I sleep in, I can still get there before the show. So I thought a few times, Steve.
I've noticed that if our office lights are not on, that means Christa's not necessarily there, or at least running really late. I'm always running late. That should have been her answer for pet peeve for me, because I am routinely 5 to 10 minutes late every single day.
With that.
But I get up at 3:15. I was getting up at 3 for a while, and I'm like, I think I can push it a little bit. 3:15 is probably the best I can do. When I was quarantined last week, though, I had my alarm set for 3:45. But you know the crappy part is, I woke up at either 3:15 or 3:30 every day. Like I couldn't physically even get to 3:45. So 3:15 for me, and but I also have significantly less prep time when it comes to actually getting ready. I come wearing my shirt and tie. I have to put a jacket on, put my earpiece on, and my makeup process, I have it down to like a minute 15 at this point. It's like a NASCAR pit stop tire change, which I've also covered. But it is. I'm like, ah!
Like that. To be fair, though, Steve gets up later than I do, but I nap in the afternoon and Steve does not. Like Steve just powers through. He gets way less sleep between the two of us. So
if I power napped, I would be done. Like this, just you want to get to bed, you want to get a good night's sleep. I've learned that as you get older, you will learn. You will learn that power naps in college, power naps were good.
Oh, they were
not now.
Oh, well, I don't power nap. I get full REM cycles. My naps are like an hour and a half to 3 hours long. It's not some 20-minute.
Oh, wow.
It is. I need to be rest.
I couldn't do it. No way.
Let me ask you this. This is just a question I thought of. If you weren't in the TV business, what else, or kind of what would be your passion that you would have loved to do?
It's so hard to answer, isn't it?
You know what? I think that it would have to be something with video. Like that's one thing I don't think many people know about Steve and I is that we both really love photography. We go and shoot our own stuff, and Steve and I have both been recognized for our camera work, for us going out and shooting our own stories, and we like it. We get really excited about editing video and shooting video, and I think that that's a passion that would be really hard to just kiss goodbye. Because we can be it's a creative outlet. Like we can be very, we can come up with different ideas, different ways to tell a story. So, I mean, I guess that there's other careers that you can do that in. News, I feel like you just really meet more interesting people. But there's been so many people that go into PR or marketing, communication.
I've seen that. You see a lot of the anchors that have been at specific TV stations and gone on to be marketing directors or PR professionals that have that experience.
Yeah, I mean, we have. For me, it's a really difficult question to answer because it's hard for me to even fathom. It would have to be something that either involves like telling somebody or some business's story. Being involved in the community, because I think those are two of the very biggest things that I like about the job. It's just going out and being able to shine a light on something that needs to have a light shined on. And we do that with our interview segments too, not just when we would go out on stories and everything. I think we both just kind of pride ourselves on that. And so it would have to be something involved with that. So if there's something out there, a career that I don't know about, maybe that's it, right?
I mean, our world works that way. We have so many people now in businesses that they shoot their own video. They edit their own video for social media. I think that that's way more common than it was even 5 years ago to do that. So that is like a very strong skill that I mean, I don't think it would have to go away, but I think it's just it's a love, at least personally for me. It is a love to shoot video and to talk to people. So,
well, I think nowadays, well, I think with technology nowadays is back in the day, you had to carry a big old camera about this big. Now I think it's about this big. And now people are using their iPhones to record stuff nowadays. And it kind of helps and kind of hurts at the same time, but the quality is almost the same.
That's the crazy part too. I mean, I used to, in my first market, when I was covering minor league hockey, I'd have to shoot the whole game, all 3 periods, with a 35-pound camera on my shoulder. By the end of the season, my lower back on the opposite side was just dead. It was not, and the tripod that I had to use for it was humongous. So you learn pretty quickly, to shoot off of your shoulder so that you don't have to lug that thing all over the place. It was, man, I liked it because I felt like I could shoot really good video that way, and it was very smooth. And with the smaller cameras, if I was doing that now, I'd have to kind of hold it in a funky manner, and it would be difficult. But physically, I'm happier now that I don't have to carry, 60 pounds of equipment with me.
Yep. Yeah, it's a lot. But I mean, even during quarantine, was it Easter, Steve, that I shot a cooking segment at home with my mom?
Yeah.
And we were able to do that all via iPhones.
Yep.
So again, that's something that it was so easy to just shoot it at home. And we turned it into a cooking segment that we aired on our TV station. So
those are what's good, because you can do something very simple like that it looks professional. I mean, you're seeing a lot of these on other news and just in general, people doing that. I mean, and just making an impact. And I think that's what really works. And I have to ask this question. So you've talked a little bit about kind of what goes on behind the scenes. Are there any funny stories that have happened behind the scenes that many people don't know about between either one of you, or something happened other than Christa falling asleep at the wheel?
In her case of dropsies, which we've already talked about, that's a pretty common one.
No, I don't think so.
My first, the first year that I was here, when I was still on the weekend morning show, our gang's lounge in Sharon was on for a food segment, and they had me try on air the their hottest wing, the in your face wing, and I did it stupidly. And thank God it was toward the end of the show. I only had like another minute and a half to read when we came back, but I couldn't do it. I physically couldn't talk. And I was coughing. This is the weirdest thing. And my co-anchor at the time, Lindsay, had to take all of my reads for the last minute and a half of the show because I couldn't do it. I couldn't talk. It was nuts.
I know that's probably the grossest thing, but that's probably honestly the thing that happens most to us is that we'll choke on coffee or like our own spit or something gross, and like you can't talk, and you're like, help, and the other person steps in. But really, we haven't had any. I mean, I haven't had any. I feel like everything that's happened, the viewers have known about it in some form. Like my mind goes straight to Mike Case ripping out the yoga moves on the news desk, and then us finding out after the show that like the glass can't support very much.
If I did that, the thing would be shattered. I'm a bigger guy.
Yeah, we were told that like it could have easily shattered on live TV. It didn't. I had a snake get a little wild on air, but really like nothing too
well,
that has happened. So.
Yeah, but let me ask you this. What has been your fun story that you've covered in your career? Or a story that you really enjoyed doing since you've kind of been in the business?
Good question.
I've enjoyed all of them. We've both gotten to do some sort of inspirational type stories with people who overcame some sort of obstacle. There several of those, both here and in my previous markets. But I always go back to like the fun stuff that I did when I was doing sports and stuff, and or even here. I mean, I went out with the Stuck in Ohio guys on Lake Milton, and we were wakeboarding and doing fun stuff like that. That's cool. I got to ride in an Indy car a couple times. Once for like 185 miles an hour around a track, and then once going 15 miles an hour on a road while I was running my errands for the day. That was fun. That's probably my most fun one. Yeah.
And Steve probably has more of a variety of that than I do, because for a big chunk of when Steve's worked here, he was our feature reporter. I mean, so he's just like knows all the fun things that are happening. And then I was working night side, and I was going to like a city council meeting every single night. Like, but it just depends. I don't know. I liked my haunted Youngstown story I did. Steve and I both did stories about some ghosts and stuff. And that was just fun to hear different things about like Stamba Auditorium being haunted, like the organ plays by itself, the Green Man, all of these different things. Those were probably some of my favorites. But that's also because I'm terrified of ghosts. So it was me facing my fear and like trying to tell a spooky story for Halloween. That was probably one of my favorites. But yeah.
Did you hear the organ play?
No, but it was playing in the middle of the night. And somebody working there heard it. And the organ wasn't even there. That was the kicker, is that the organ, they said, "What? We heard the organ playing at last night. Like, was somebody here?" And they said, the organ's out for cleaning and repair right now.
It was out for cleaning for like a year and a half or something at one point.
It was something wild, yeah. And somebody working there heard an organ, and there was not even an organ in the building. So,
yeah, I heard stories like that at the old Wick Pollock, where the president of Youngstown State lives, and they knocked down that whole back side of it, and that's kind of where it was. I mean, it was closed for many years. I got to go in it before they were going to knock it down. And I mean, it was just like everything was there when they closed it down 20 years ago, saying like in the banquet room, the chairs were set, everything was set up. And it's like time just stopped.
That's cool.
That would freak me out. I was like,
oh yeah, that would, you mean like, yeah, this closed 70 years ago. What? And everything's still there. Like, it's like when you look at you watch like The Walking Dead, it's everything just covered in dust.
Yep, someone else's dust.
Well, let me ask you this: who kind of have been some of your mentors growing up in the business or in general?
Oh, there's a lot.
It's hard. It's hard when you're on the other side of the questions, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, there's so many different people. I mean, my first market, I had a weekend anchor. She was really tough on me, but gosh, she taught me how to write. And it honestly was more bits and pieces throughout the way. I had a news director after I was miserable at my first job, and I just wanted to be closer to home, and I really wanted to anchor. And I had a news director who was like, I don't even know where he is right now, but he brought me in for an interview, and he sat me down and he told me, I'm not going to hire you. And I had just sat down, and I was like, well, can you tell me why? And he said, one of the main things I do when I watch resume reels, which is like a clipping of all the video you've ever done, he goes, is I close my eyes. He says, I close my eyes because most people, when they're watching the news, they're not actually watching, they're doing something else. So I go off of my ears first. And he said, and you talk too fast. And when you get excited, your voice goes up 3 octaves. And I was like, oh my gosh. and so I said, okay. He says, you just need to relax, like take a breath before you start talking. And it was so funny because after he gave me that advice, I went out on more stories, and I did that. And then that was the clip that I got hired off of in Youngstown, was because a random person told me they wouldn't hire me. So just little things like that. Bob Black, I didn't get to know him for very long before he left. But he just was just this personification of just like what a news guy should be. Just serious. He took his job so seriously. He had a dry sense of humor. It was just fantastic.
He did.
Yeah. I remember walking into the news station and really looking up to him. So yeah, just like with everything, like the reason, like, you know, you get a sense of humor that develops is probably because you heard something along the way that you liked and you picked up on. Same thing with news. I think it's a mixture of a lot of different people who you admire or you talk to and you see and you like that a lot. So
yeah. I guess for me, it starts even younger because I lost my parents when I was fairly young. So my high school principal and one of my high school basketball coaches and my algebra teacher in high school were huge influences on me. All 3 of them I would point to for sure, and kind of gave me the confidence that I needed at that point to really think that I could do whatever the heck I wanted to do. And then even in college, I mean, Christa and I both know Tim Sharp. He was funny but at the same time was probably the first real feedback. Tim Sharp and Mary Rogas, both for me at OU, were people that gave me honest feedback, which is something that I feel like in our field, it's kind of strange. There's some people that will be straight shooters and tell you exactly like it is. And then there's other people that'll sugarcoat everything for you. And then when you do that to somebody and they send out 35 demo reels and don't get a call back, or they send out 75 demo reels and don't get a call back, they're wondering what the heck went wrong. So the fact that people were able to critique things for me in an honest fashion and not just be like, look at my stuff and say, oh yeah, you're good, you won't have a problem. That's not what I wanted. I wanted somebody to say, okay, wait, well, what can I work on? And they were two people that helped me out quite a bit. And then in my first market, my first news director, Scott Nichols, was just like a different cat when it came to managing and cultivating young talent. He hired a lot of people out of college because it was a starter market for the most part. And but to a person, almost every one of those people ended up in a much bigger role in a much bigger market. And I still have friends from there who are in LA and New York City and Chicago right now, who are still in the business. And I would absolutely say he played a role in all of that because he made people examine what they were doing on a daily basis and made them get better. And some people were hard workers to begin with, and they were all talented, but he's definitely somebody I would point to help me look at things and say, okay, well, I can continue to get better at this, and this is something I need to focus on, and challenge yourself in a different way. So,
well, and we talk about that, and we look at you have your specific role models. You are where you are. What does kind of the future look for you right now? I know we talked a little bit about what your 10-year plan is, but this is kind of off base to kind of say what I know we go day by day right now because of the pandemic, but what do you kind of just think about in the future? Like what just in general with families or looking in the 6 months to a year of just kind of enjoying life?
Steve, you want 10 more kids?
I got 4. I'm good.
You don't want a basketball team?
No, listen, we're good. We're good.
You can play against them.
Yeah, as long as my knee lets me. No, I don't. I look at, and it's not as much as the immediate future as the probably 5 to 10 years out. I don't know what local news is going to look like. I honestly don't. Things have changed dramatically. I got into the business in 2004, so this is 16 years for me. My first market, we had a website, but we didn't have any news content on it. And now people go to our website or get news content off of our website, arguably just as much, because you can't expect somebody to watch 2 hours of a morning show every day. Mm-hmm. A lot of our segments and interviews and stories that we do have the bulk of their lifespan online. I'm curious to see how that'll go. I think that my view of the future is that there's so much unknown because we don't know where this is all going to go. When I started in the business, newspapers were still a thing and not that they're not a thing now, but you have major markets who have borderline shuttered their newspapers. Cleveland Plain Dealer was a massive entity for so long, and now Cleveland.com is the only thing that matters there. It's obviously locally with the Vindy and everything and what happened with that. It's just, I'm curious. I don't want to say concerned, but I'm curious as to how things will change in news over the next 5, 10, 15 years, because it's so dramatically different now than it was 15 years ago when I was a rookie.
We didn't even have social media.
Yeah.
It's like, to put that in perspective. But I don't know. I think aside from changing careers altogether, I think that at least for me personally, that I'm happy in my job right now. And that is something that I don't take for granted anymore. especially with the news people, is that we spend so much thinking about the next step and like, you need to climb or you need to do this and maybe you can get this. And you learn if you are constantly trying to climb and do that, yes, that's how you move to bigger markets. But then there's a point that like, are you ever just going to be happy where you are? Like, can you be happy? Like 10 years goes by and were you just not going to be happy for 10 years because you were trying to get to this crazy thing? You almost have to be present. And so for me, when I finally got into a position that I loved, and, I have coworkers that I love that I get along with, and, a station that I love, that's close to my family, that I can see them on Christmas, even when I work. I look more to my personal life, for goals, like running half marathons. And, my big goal is, starting to teach self-defense classes. I mean, like those things really, have fueled a passion too, because I've really gotten this morning show thing down.
Don't karate chop the glass table.
I know. Even though I don't have the strength though, Steve. Maybe I should try that out.
Yet.
Yes, I haven't done it yet. No, but there is a big thing about being present and being happy with everything too. So I do think our business is going to change, but if there's anything we've learned from the pandemic, it's that we are just
roll with it.
We are adapting to it, and I'm not afraid of the changes that'll happen. I'm sure they will come just as they have come, and we've continued on. So, but the happiness is a big factor.
I mean, I think some people, I kind of go with that notion of, you can pay me $1 million. I may hate the job, but if you pay me $50,000 and I love the job, sometimes that's the best way to go, because you want happiness. You really want to come home with stress.
Exactly.
But I may take that job for 3 months, just $1 million to get that part of the salary.
Get the cushion, right?
Get that cushion, then roll into it.
It is though. I think the older you get, you realize like, okay, like, is this worth my time and money? I think about that with big CEOs, and like, yes, they're making all this money, but like, if you don't have time to, like, as we said, have dinner with your family, or like go to your kid's soccer game, or, if you don't have the moment. Yeah. And we are very community and family based, for sure. So I think that's
good.
I think that's super important.
And I think you two kind of have a good commodity together, and you really enjoy each other's company. Now, I will ask this: have you guys ever finished each other's sentences?
Probably, yeah. I mean, we basically have the same thoughts, so it's eerie how much we clicked, like, from the get-go. It wasn't. There was no period of adjustment. I mean, I've worked with people that I didn't have as much on-air chemistry with, and it was a building process. We're friends. I mean, it's not like we're not putting on an act for TV. Like, this is like literally what we do when we're talking to each other on air is what we do when we're talking to each other at our desks or whatever.
Yeah. There's almost a point that we kind of like, we're so used to it. I feel like I could say anything to Steve on air and off air, and he would be like, give me a genuine response. And so because of that, I think even sometimes when we're talking on TV, it's so genuine, you almost forget you're on TV until they're like, wrap it up, guys, wrap it up. And
I know. And that is another point that we should probably make, is how often our producer, who is a rock star, and we love her to death, but how often she has to kind of keep us. She goes, all right, rap, come on. All right, we're here in our ear.
It'll be like, we're out of music. We need to stop.
Yes.
But
I can only imagine what's said in your ear.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Well,
have not been spoken.
Christa, Steve, I appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy schedule. Now I'm going to go to the most important segment that I like to do with all my guests. I'm going to ask you 4 questions.
Okay.
That I ask everyone. So it's not just you guys.
So is it a competition? Like, do I get to beat Steve?
You can. Well, yeah, we'll see. It's a test. First, best experience, personal or professional. So it could be either one. Best experience. Could be anything, personal or professional. And there is time limits on these.
Okay.
Oh, it's easy for me. I mean, it's watching my kids be born. I mean, it was life altering and amazing, and I mean, has obviously had a profound impact on my life and continues to. But that moment, those moments there, where you find out if it's a boy or a girl, and that's when the next sort of branch to your tree of life begins.
Oh, they're great kids too. I love them.
Christa, you're up.
I hear them upstairs. They're
Mine
arguing.
is like kind of a bittersweet memory, but it is a professional one in that
It's fine.
the only Emmy award I ever got was like during the most traumatic time of my life, and it was like the one good thing that we had to look forward to, that my family and my friends, we were going to dress up and we were going to get one night, like a break for one night, and when I won, it wasn't even, I didn't have this like excitement that I thought of. It was just more this emotion, like seeing the people who had been by me through everything. They were all there. And it was just that reminder that like, no matter what happens in the darkest times, like they were always there. And then here we were like dressed up. My mom's in a ball gown, like, and just sharing that with them too. It was just like this very bittersweet moment, and coming out and having my friends that drove to Cleveland dress up, and again, the same people that had been rocks were there. So I think that was just one of those things that I'll never forget, because it was like a little glimmer of light during like the darkest time. So I remember that for a different reason than professional goals, but.
Okay. And one day you'll have kids just like Steve.
Yeah, my basketball team would go up against his basketball team.
Exactly. Mine's going to be a little taller.
Best accomplishment. Best accomplishment.
Whew.
Aren't these harder than the other questions I asked?
Yeah.
Honestly, for me, it's weird because I've won a bunch of awards, which is great, and they meant a lot to me, I guess, at the time. But now I don't want to say they're meaningless. It's cool that I had stuff, but for me, I know this is going to sound super weird. My biggest accomplishment in my career, I think, is just that I'm still doing it. So many of my friends, and believe me, when we talk about, it's not us tooting our own horns for going to OU, we graduated with so many over the top talented people. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, in a lot of places, I mean, a lot of things we talked about over this last 56 minutes or so, is that in some aspects of this career can grind on you. The hours can be long, the pay can be poor, especially when you're first starting out. You're working, there are no good news shifts. There's no like beautiful 8 to 4 shift or some 9 to 5 type of thing. That I'm still doing it. I mean, so many of my friends who are so good, so good on TV, so talented, got to big markets, but then they're like, I can't do this anymore. That for me, I know that's a weird answer, but the fact that I'm still doing it now.
There's no such thing as weird answers. It's because it's your personal.
Yeah.
I know.
Christa?
I think my biggest accomplishment is yet to come. I hope so.
Ooh, look at that!
Look at that!
I hope so. Like I hope that God has, a big plan. You ever feel something in your bones that you're just like something good can come? Oh yeah! No.
10.
Thank you. Give me a 10 too. No, I really do. Like,
no, there's nothing wrong with that.
We've had so many so many experiences and bad things that happen in our life, and it's really cool whenever God shows you the other side. That something beautiful might happen from it. And that's like truly how I feel, that some good things can be on the horizon, which is it's a very positive thing to say during a pandemic. Some good things are going to come. But yeah, I really do think that like the thing that will make me happiest in life and most accomplished is not here yet. I do feel, what's the right word? Satisfied with how things have gone. And I think Christa 10 years ago would be proud of Christa today. So
there's nothing wrong with that. Actually, I only had 3 questions. The other one you already answered was the role model question.
Uh-huh.
So the next question, or the last question, is if there was one person you would want to meet, past or present, who would it be?
Oh, like someone we've never met.
Past or present? Boy, I got you guys thinking.
It is a very rare moment where we're both quiet.
I'm like, am I going to choose my future husband? Should it be a celebrity? So like, we fall in love and get married.
or oh gosh,
or probably. That's a great question.
Steve,
what was it? Past or present?
Past or present.
Now I've had people choose like JFK, Abraham Lincoln. I've had them like George Washington, depending on what your cup of tea is.
Now, for me, it would be more personal. It would have to be like an ancestor. I that would be cool. Like I never met one of my grandfathers. That'd be kind of neat. To have conversations with them. That'd be cool. I'd like to go back a couple generations and see what what it was like, what kind of set the table for me being here today.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm going to go the not sentimental route and say that like since I've been in high school, I've just been dying to see Stevie Nicks. Like just dying. I saved up all this money for concert tickets for me and my dad to go, and our whole family, we love Fleetwood Mac. And I remember being like, finally, I'm going to see Stevie Nicks. And my dad got the tickets and got all excited and was like, Barb, we can go see Stevie Nicks, to my mom. And I was like, and they had the best time of their life, and I've always wanted to go see her. I have so many questions for her. I think that would be probably the one person that I would fangirl over if I met them.
She'd probably be like the way she could you see how excited she was to say Stevie Nicks? She'd be like, "Hi, this is Stevie Nicks. This is Christa."
Yeah. Yeah, I think
like a dead, dead scare. I mean, people do that. I've heard stories of it.
Yeah,
I've seen it. I've seen it happen firsthand with people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy schedules. It was great to just sit down and have a nice fireside chat.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks for inviting us on. We appreciate it.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Thank you, everyone, for joining me tonight on Spanning the Need. For any future podcasts or interviews, please go to anthonyvspano.com. Again, thank you, Steve and Christa. I hope everyone has a great night. God bless and be safe.